Here are the answers to 35 through 42. They give us a graph. Here we're looking at Stacy's savings, and we are answering some questions about it. The first question says, what does the slope in the graph represent? Well, let's find the slope. Here is my little triangle, my change in y over my change in x. I go up $2 for every 1. Okay, so my change in y over change in x is my 2. Now, the question is, what does this mean? Well, the change in y is what? The change in y, look at your y axis, that's Dad. The change in y is Dad. And the change in x, what does the x-axis represent? The x-axis is Stacy. So this is saying that Dad goes up $2 for every $1 that Stacy saves. So let's look. Dad deposits increase, is that going up? Increase by $2 each time Stacy earns money. That seems like it's probably right. Are Dad's saving decreasing? Are we got a negative slope? No. Are Stacy's savings decreasing? No. All of those talk about decreasing, so the only one that makes any sense is A. Now 36 says write an equation that represents Stacy's earning in relation to her dad's deposits. Write the equation in slope-intercept form. So we need M and we need B. Well, we've already said that M was 2. We got the slope. Where does this cross the y-axis? B is 0. So y equals 2x plus 0. We don't need to write that 0, so we get y equals 2x. That's B. We've got another graph that's asking us about the equation of the graph in slope-intercept form. So we need M and we need B. So let's look first of all. B is usually the easiest one. Where does this cross the y-axis? This crosses the y-axis at 20. Now you can look over here now. Could we pick out the answer now? There's only one that's got to be of 20, isn't it? But let's go ahead and do the slope just to double check ourselves. Let's look at, here's my little triangle, okay? Change in y over change in x. How much up am I going from here to here? That's halfway between 20 and 30, so that's 25 over, how much did my x change? Always look at your scale. That's over 1, so M is 20, not 25. Okay, I messed that up. Let's look again. Halfway, I've gone halfway, right? So I've gone $5. I've gone from 20 to 25, so I've gone $5. My x is 1, change in y is 5, change in x is 1, so M is 5. So I get y equals 5x plus 20. Sorry about that. That's B, which is what we thought it would be. Now, 38 says, what does the slope represent? Well, look at your y-axis and look at your x-axis. Your change in y, your y-axis is your yearly cost. Over the x-axis, the change in x, what's going on in the x-axis? The x-axis is the number of visits. So that means my yearly cost per visit is $5. So let's look over here. The yearly cost increases $5 per visit. Is that my slope? Change in y over change in x. Doesn't tell us anything about number of visits. Doesn't tell us about a range. We don't know anything about trainers. Where'd that come from? So the yearly cost increases. That means it's positive. This has positive slope. We go up $5 for every 1 visit. Okay, we have another graph. It says the graph below represents the number of miles that a car has been driven compared to the gas that vehicle has used. Use the graph to answer the questions. So 39 says, at what rate is the car using gasoline? Remember, rate is slope. So I look at my change in y. Now notice my scale here. That's important. How much am I going up? I'm going up 20 miles. 20 miles. Look at your y-axis. Over my change in x. From here to here is 2 gallons. So 20 miles for every 2 gallons is what? 10 miles per gallon. So that is A. All right, 40 says write the equation of the information presented in slope-intercept form. Well, we've already found M. M is 10. Where does it cross the y-axis? Where does this graph cross the y-axis? B is 0, so that's going to be y equals 10x plus 0. We won't write the 0, so we get y equals 10x. (41) says, a chef teaches private cooking classes. She charges a set fee for each class, plus an additional rate for each hour she teaches, as shown by the graph below. Which statement is true about the graph? Notice that the questions are asking about the y-intercept and the slope. So let's look up in this problem what's telling us that which one's the slope and which one's the y-intercept. Here's that word for each. So that rate per hour, the rate is the slope, and the set fee, that's like your initial cost, right? That's what it costs just to get started. So the set fee is the y-intercept. So as we look, let's see, it says that the set fee, the y-intercept, the set fee is 0. Does this go through the origin? Is it free just to start? No. So we can eliminate A. B says the y-intercept shows that the set fee is 30. Where do we cross the y-axis here? Do we cross the y-axis at 30? That looks like that's the answer. Let's just check our slope just to be sure. Let's look here. My slope, draw your triangle. My change in y over my change in x, what is that? From 30 to 60. So my change in y is 30. So my cost is 30 per hour. Is that either one of those? No. So my answer is B. One more graph for this set. The chart below shows the cost of purchasing t-shirts. The equation that shows the relationship between the number of shirts sold and the total cost, that's x and y, is y equals 15x. What does the slope represent in this equation? Well, my slope is my change in y over my change in x. Well, what's my y-axis? My y-axis is cost. And my x-axis, look at your x-axis, is the number of shirts. So that means that's 15 over 1. That's $15. My cost is 15 for every 1 shirt. So let's look. Is that the cost of 15 shirts? No. Does that tell us how many shirts are sold? No. Look at C. The cost increases $15 for each shirt. For each is a rate, right? 15 for each shirt. Is that what we got? We did. Why is D wrong? Because it says decreases. This is an increasing slope, right? Positive slope. So my answer is C.